We're going to write in some vocabulary, and then you need to be putting these into your vocabulary notebooks. The first word is x-axis. An x-axis is the horizontal line on a graph. And remember that that's horizontal is going that direction. And then these should be going in alphabetically, so this should be in the letter X. Our next one is y-axis. If you need to pause so you can get to the letter, please do so. And that would be the vertical axis on a graph or line. And remember that that vertical would be going up and down. And then the next two you probably should have had in science, independent variable. So independent variable goes on the x-axis. And it's the one we have the most control of. So we can't control time, but we can control time increments. Like I'm going to measure every year, every 10 years, every second, those kinds of things. So that's a lot of times time ends up being on that x-axis. And then, oh, yeah, we said x-axis. Dependent variable would be the other one. And it goes on the y-axis. And it's going to rely on the independent variable. It can't really stand alone. So if you're selling t-shirts, the amount of money that you make is going to rely on the amount of t-shirts that you sold. And you can also think about it. I have to sell the t-shirts first before I get the money. And that can help you think of that independent variable. If you have time, typically that's going to be on the x-axis, but that can vary too. Because if you're talking about like how fast a race was, that's going to make a difference based on looking at every year and seeing how many of a particular type of car was sold. Our next one is coordinate graph. So we are graphing points. And so a coordinate graph is going to be a graph made up of those points. And we have our x-axis and our y-axis. So I drew them in differently. So that's my x. This is my y. And our graphing, when we graph our points, is an x comma y. So we're always going to graph going over first and then up and down. And if both of our numbers are positive, they're in that first quadrant here. If our x value is negative and our y is positive, all of our points would be in this area. Third quadrant, they're both negative. And if x is positive and y is negative, that's going to be fitting into that. And whenever we're graphing, again, we're making dots. And we'll put that in our next word, which is scale. So scale is the amount each axis goes up by. And it must be a consistent pattern. So if I give you an example here, we can have a scale of 1 on our x-axis, and maybe we have a scale of 10 on the y. But we can't just have it go like 3 and then 10 and then 15 and 16. It has to go up by a nice amount. So this has a scale of 10. And down here, we have a scale of 1. It's okay that they're different. Once in a while, I'll say you want them to be the same just because of something else we're working on. But for the most part, they are independent of each other. They could be completely different. And maybe this is going to be the year. And this might be like amount of cars that you sold. And our title is selling cars. And then when we're putting in our data, we are putting in dots to represent different points. We're not necessarily connecting them. We're just going to put the dots for the data and then work on whatever skill that we're working on. So all those should be in your vocabulary, and then we're going to be using those